They are truly bastards in the animal kingdom, especially the one at the end of the video. 1. The cuckoo. Kicking off the list is a bird that seems familiar, the cuckoo. This bird is notorious for being so lazy and irresponsible that it becomes a mother, but can't be bothered to raise its young. The cuckoo doesn't build its own nest, nor does it incubate its eggs or rear its chicks like other decent birds. Instead, the boss lady cuckoo lays by proxy. When another bird leaves its nest, the female cuckoo sneaks in, steals one of the host's eggs, and replaces it with her own. Seeing the perfectly disguised cuckoo egg, the naive foster parents are none the wiser, and off the mother cuckoo goes, dusting off her behind, and flying away to have fun, leaving the responsibility of child rearing to someone else. The tragedy doesn't stop there. When the cuckoo chick hatches, though its body is still pink and fragile, it immediately reveals the assassin nature inherited from its mother. Using its back and wings, the cuckoo chick labors to push each egg, and even the rightful chicks, out of the nest, dispatching its foster siblings from the very first moments. The goal of this cold-blooded behavior? Simple: to monopolize the food that the hapless foster parents bring back. By the time this bastard child has grown huge, the scrawny foster parents are still forced to keep feeding it, a child many times larger than they are. Once fully fledged, the young cuckoo callously flies off, leaving the pair of warblers forlorn. Ironically, it's very possible that their very nest will later be visited again by another cuckoo depositing an egg. A painful loop. Infuriating as it sounds, this brood parasitic behavior of the cuckoo does have an evolutionary rationale. It turns out the mother cuckoo specializes in eating toxic caterpillars that the adult can tolerate, whereas a chick that ate them would be done for immediately. So she has to entrust her young to another species to be raised on safer food. Of course, a sin is still a sin. Given such laziness and cold-bloodedness, it's no wonder there's the saying, raising a cuckoo's child, to refer to someone who bites the hand that feeds them. 2. Emerald cockroach wasp. The name already sounds sparkly, but don't be fooled. The emerald cockroach wasp, also called the jeweled wasp, is in fact one of the cold-blooded, most cunning predators in the insect world. Its most horrifying feat, turning cockroaches many times its size into walking corpses. The way it does this is straight out of a horror film. First, the female ambushes and delivers a sting to the roach's body to induce temporary paralysis. The roach freezes for the first few minutes. Next, the wasp executes a second, fateful sting, this time aimed straight at the roach's brain with terrifying precision. A special venom is injected into the neural ganglia, paralyzing the victim's will. The roach remains alive but completely loses the ability to flee or resist. Having turned the roach into a wind-up doll, the wasp calmly leads its pet back to the nest by biting the roach's antenna and tugging it along, just like walking a dog on a leash. Once back at the lair, the female lays a single egg on the roach's body and leisurely seals the entrance with soil, carefully locking the room so no one disturbs the upcoming feast. Inside this living tomb, the unlucky roach still clings to life, lying motionless for days with its mind control switched off. That's when the wasp larva hatches and begins to eat the host slowly. It feeds selectively, destroying the non-essential organs first, keeping the roach alive as long as possible in pain to have fresh meat to eat little by little. After a bit more than a week of savoring, the larva finally devours all the internal organs and kills the roach, then pupates right inside the empty shell. A few weeks later, an adult wasp crawls out of the roach's carcass, ready to fly off in search of a new victim. It's more horrifying than any Hollywood zombie movie, and the victim is simply unlucky, never getting the chance to outplay it. 3. A zombie snail. If one fine day you see a snail with 2 antennae on its head flashing green and red like a disco light, don't assume it's going clubbing. Sadly, what you're looking at is actually a snail possessed by the parasitic flatworm leucochloridium, better known online as the zombie snail. This parasite has a perverse life cycle. It needs to inhabit both snails and birds to complete it. Specifically, the worm's larvae live in bird droppings. When a snail eats them, it becomes infected. Inside the snail, the leucochloridium arch-villain develops and starts to run riot. It crawls up and occupies the 2 eye stalks, destroying the snail's eyes in the process, and then transforms into 2 swollen brood sacs, elongated like a pair of worms. To make matters worse, they continuously pulsate and bulge in and out, creating the spectacle of 2 snail horns that glow, blaze with color, and twitch frantically as if shouting, "Eat me!" This grotesque performance is, of course, designed to attract the attention of birds, predators that love worms. A hungry bird flying past will easily mistake the gaudy, writhing tentacles for a pair of plump caterpillars and swoop down to peck them. Sadly, the snail gets pecked to pieces, and often the bird gouges out just the two parasitic horns to eat. So the snail sometimes survives and continues to be parasitized again. The leucochloridium parasite is thus carried into the bird's gut, where it reproduces and lays eggs to complete its cycle. The eggs pass out in the bird's droppings. Other snails come along and eat them. And so this ghastly life cycle repeats. The height of the nastiness here is that the worm not only turns the snail's entire body into an incubator, but also hacks the snail's brain, stripping it of its natural aversion to light. The darker a snail normally prefers it, the more, when infected, it crawls out into the open where birds can spot it. Truly masterful, so outrageous that the snail might as well beg for death. Quattro saculina, as if calmly going around sucking blood weren't bad enough. The parasite called saculina also plays a brutally sex-switching game with its host. Saculina is actually a parasitic barnacle, whale louse, that specializes in attacking crabs. So infamous it's been dubbed the most evil sex change doctor in the animal kingdom. It starts life as a tiny free-swimming larva. When it encounters a suitable crab, the female larva clings to the carapace membrane and injects a mass of cells called a vermigon into the crab's body. The larval outer shell falls away, while the tumor inside begins to proliferate rapidly. It sends root-like filaments throughout the crab's body cavity, sucking the host's nutrients dry as it grows. After it has taken over the body, saculina goes on to pull the strings of the crab's mind as well. It secretes hormones that suppress the nervous system and alter the crab's physiology. In males, the parasite even castrates its victim. The male's reproductive organs atrophy, and the body gradually develops female-like traits, even growing pseudo-ovarian tissue. When saculina matures, it protrudes to form a dangling brood sac on the underside of the crab's abdomen. At a glance, it looks exactly like a female crab's egg mass. At this point, the crab, male or female, is brainwashed into thinking it's carrying eggs. It stops molting and pours all its energy into guarding and tending the parasitic sac as though it were its own clutch. By the time the saculina in that fake egg sac releases larvae and they swim off, the poor crab gains nothing, infertile, exhausted, and then left to waste away. Truly a rare act of ruthless deception and exploitation. Just imagine, one fine day something gets implanted in you, sucks your blood, turns you into the other sex, and then makes you babysit its offspring. Is that nasty enough yet? I've the Dr. Impostor fish. In tropical coral reefs, there's a fascinating fish spa service. Tiny cleaner fish that eat the parasites clinging to larger fish. Big fish often swim of their own accord to these cleaning stations to have these fish doctors tidy up their mouths and skin. It's a mutually beneficial symbiosis. The big fish get cleaned, the little fish get a meal. However, where there's trust, there's trickery. Enter the impostor blenny, Aspidontus tenuatus, a shameful poser of the ocean world. This blenny's appearance and mannerisms are almost identical to those of the cleaner wrasse, a well-known cleaning fish. It even swims with the same jaunty bobbing as if inviting clients in for service. The gullible big fish, seeing a familiar doctor, open their mouths, flare their gills, and relax, ready for a health check. That's when the swindler shows its true colors. Instead of gently picking off parasites, the blenny snaps off a bite, tearing a piece of fin or skin from the victim, and darts away. In pain and shock, the larger fish realize they've just fallen for a spectacular sneak bite. The phony blenny is long gone, off to sweet talk its next mark. Scientists call this behavior aggressive mimicry, pretending to be another species in order to profit. Most of the victims are inexperienced juveniles. As for adults, once they've encountered this little punk, they remember its face and chase it down without mercy. Still, tricking just a few fish a day is enough for the blenny to have a warm, full dinner. A perfect con that reminds us, Dr. Impostors aren't unique to humans. 6. The widow fireflies. Most people know the story of the black widow spider eating her mate. But did you know there are fireflies that use a honey trap to kill their own kind for personal gain? That would be certain firefly species in the genus Photuris, dubbed the femme fatales of the insect world. On summer nights, male fireflies usually flash their lights in their species' own love morse to attract a mate. In response, if interested, the females will switch on a matching signal so the male can home in. And yet the female Photuris has cribbed this code. She can impersonate the good girl of another species, emitting flashes identical to those of a female Thotanus, for instance. The poor Photinus male, thinking he's about to enjoy a romantic encounter, flies in, only to become dinner the moment he lands for the hungry Photuris female. Not only does she get a protein-rich meal, this Photuris also secures a valuable prize. The defensive compounds present in Photinus fireflies, called lucibuphagins. The Photinus boys feed on things that leave these toxins in their blood, making them unpalatable to spiders or birds. The Photurus female, however, cannot produce such self-defense chemicals on her own, so she drinks the male's blood, i.e. eats them to acquire antibodies for herself. Truly, sleeping together comes with medicine. After feasting on a lover's body, the Photurus female absorbs enough toxin that nobody wants to touch her. Any spider that bites her will spit her out immediately. The toxin even passes into her eggs to protect the larvae later on. Two birds with one stone, a full belly and a pharmacological boost. No wonder Photurus uses this ultimate move of healing herself with love. On closer thought, Photurus's behavior resembles certain female killers in film noir, playing the frail, seductive act to lure men into a trap, then butchering them for their assets. There's a saying, beauty brings disaster, but in this case, it's more accurate to say, beauty brings poison. 7 polyergus ants. Slavery may seem like a concept unique to human society, but the world of ants has its own dark chapters to match. Leading the list are polyergus ants, also called Amazon ants, masters of the art of kidnapping and forced labor. These polyergus females are extremely lazy. They hardly forage or rear their own young, living entirely off the labor of ants from other species. So how do they coerce others to serve them? The polyergus plan has 2 steps. Steal the children and brainwash the masses. Studies show polyergus typically target nests of close relatives, such as ants in the genus Formica. They marshal large raiding parties, strike straight into the target nest, use their sharp mandibles to ravage the defenders, and then carry off pupae and larvae back to their own nest. This lightning raid leaves the Formica colony bereft of its brood, with no time to react. When the abducted pupae emerge right inside the polyergus prison, the bewildered young ants smell the polyergus queen's odor all around, and mistake her for their mother. On top of that, polyergus secrete special pheromones to brainwash the newly emerged workers, making them unconditionally obedient to their captors. From then on, these victims become true slave ants, tending the polyergus queen, rearing brood, carrying food, standing guard, every chore in the nest. Meanwhile, the polyergus aristocracy simply lounge about, well-fed, and then head out for the next raid. Astonishingly, over time, polyergus have evolved to the point of being unable to live without slaves. Their mouth parts are weak, they don't even feed themselves. Without servants to present food to their mouths, the entire colony would starve. It's a case of reaping what you sow, except that it's the innocent slave ants who suffer along with them. Chilling, isn't it? The tiny insect world is rife with war, kidnapping, and enslavement, not unlike human feudal societies. Nature, it seems, has a twisted sense of irony. Science drongo. If there were an Oscar for Best Voice Actor, the drongo, the African fork-tailed drongo, would be a top contender. This small blackbird is dubbed the savannah's professional liar. Normally it plays the hero, standing guard and sounding the alarm whenever a hawk or leopard approaches, saving its meerkat buddies, banded mongooses, and the surrounding birds from being eaten. In return, they trust the drongo and let it share their turf. But that trust is sometimes shamelessly exploited. Scientists have found that drongos often lie in wait, until the meerkats have just found something tasty, say a plump lizard, then suddenly scream an alarm. Hearing the danger signal, the meerkats panic and bolt, abandoning their meal to save themselves. And of course, the drongo swoops down in a flash to snatch the spoils and swallow them. A full 23% of a drongo's daily diet comes from cons like that. However, lie often enough, and you'll arouse suspicion. If a drongo keeps using the same fake alarm call, over time the meerkat audience will ignore it and stop running. But our drongo knows how to switch tracks. When the old trick starts to lose its magic, it pulls a new one. It mimics the very alarm call of the species it's deceiving. You heard right. The drongo has top-tier mimicry, having learned the alarm calls of many different birds and mammals. It mimics the very alarm call of the species it's deceiving. For example, if after a few cries of hawk, the meerkats ignore it. Next time, the drongo ups the ante and shrieks the meerkat's own alarm call. Hearing their exact call, the meerkats jump out of their skins and dive into their burrows, abandoning the fat prize so the drongo can steal it at leisure. A breathtaking swindle. A wickedly evolved version of The Boy Who Cried Wolf. What's more, the drongo's armory includes over 50 mimic voices it can rotate through, ensuring victims don't catch on. Knock, sea otters. To wrap up the list, let's turn to a mammal that seems harmless but carries a rap sheet as thick as anyone's. The sea otter. Yes, the fluffy little otters endlessly PR'd with images of holding hands while sleeping on the water, or cracking shellfish with stones. But behind that cute fur and innocent face lies a world of perversity and violence. Think I'm joking? Researchers have documented a whole array of unbelievable behaviors in this species. First, male sea otters are extremely aggressive in the bedroom. They mate by biting the female's neck and forcing her head underwater, sometimes for so long that the female drowns. The sight of unlucky females washing ashore in California with bite marks all over their faces is not uncommon. Second, and no less horrific, some males even pick on other species. They've been repeatedly caught forcibly mating with tiny seal pups. The pups often die in the process from the size mismatch and from being held underwater too long. And it doesn't stop there. The male's depravity can reach an expert level. There are documented cases of a male killing a female and then continuing to copulate with the corpse for an entire week. Nearly a year later, the very same individual was observed doing the same thing to the body of another female. Necrophilia in animals is rare, yet this guy seems addicted. Finally, we can't ignore the crime of kidnapping for ransom. Records show that a male sea otter will sometimes sneak up on a foraging mother, snatch her pup, and hold it underwater as a hostage. When the frantic mother surfaces, the male will only release the pup if he can seize the prey she just caught. That's right, he demands ransom and food, a behavior humans usually only see in crime films. What could be more despicable? On reflection, everyone thought sea otters were adorable. Truly, good looks can't beat shamelessness. And in this case, cuteness can't hide a lecherous nature. Of course, it's not that all sea otters are depraved. The behaviors above are mainly seen in certain wayward males. But that's more than enough to make us cautious. Don't judge by appearances. Cute isn't necessarily nice.